Imagine you've worked hard all your life, saving diligently for retirement. Then one day, you wake up to discover your money is worth 10% less than it was last year. Your purchasing power evaporating before your eyes. What if I told you that the very tools designed to help the economy might actually be making your money worth less? That's right. When central banks cut interest rates to stimulate growth, they might actually be setting the stage for inflation that eats away at your savings. Welcome to the Paradox of Plenty, where I'll explain exactly how cutting interest rates can actually fuel inflation, and what that means for your money. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at interest rate announcements the same way again. Before we dive into the paradox, let's make sure we're all on the same page about what interest rates and inflation actually are. Interest rates are essentially the cost of borrowing money. When the Federal Reserve or any central bank lowers interest rates, they're making it cheaper for people and businesses to take out loans. The idea is that cheaper loans will encourage more spending and investment, which should stimulate economic growth. Inflation, on the other hand, is the rate at which prices for goods and services rise over time. When there's inflation, each dollar buys fewer goods and services than before, your money's purchasing power decreases. Now, conventional economic wisdom tells us that central banks cut interest rates when the economy needs a boost and raise them when inflation gets too high. So why would cutting rates actually lead to inflation? That's where our paradox begins. When interest rates drop, something fascinating happens to the money supply. First, banks can borrow money more cheaply from the central bank. This means they're more willing to lend money to consumers and businesses at lower rates. Second, consumers and businesses are more eager to borrow because it costs less. More mortgages, more car loans, more business expansion loans. This two-sided effect dramatically increases the amount of money circulating in the economy. And here's where Milton Friedman's famous quote comes in: "Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon." When the supply of money grows faster than the economy's ability to produce goods and services, each dollar becomes less valuable. There's simply more money chasing the same amount of goods. Think of it like this: if everyone in a small town suddenly received $10,000, local stores would likely raise prices because they know people have more money to spend. The same principle applies to the broader economy when the money supply expands rapidly due to low interest rates. Lower interest rates don't just increase the money supply, they change behavior in ways that further fuel inflation. When borrowing becomes cheaper, consumers tend to take on more debt to buy big-ticket items like houses, cars, and appliances. Businesses expand operations, build new facilities, and hire more workers. All this additional spending creates stronger demand for goods and services. When demand increases without a corresponding increase in supply, prices naturally rise. It's basic economics. Higher demand plus the same supply equals higher prices. Moreover, companies facing higher demand often need to pay more for labor and materials, further driving up their costs. These increased costs are then passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. What's particularly dangerous is that this can create a self-reinforcing cycle. As people see prices rising, they may rush to buy things before prices rise further, creating even more demand and pushing prices even higher. There's another, often overlooked way that low interest rates fuel inflation, through asset prices. When interest rates are low, the returns on safe investments like bonds and savings accounts become less attractive. This pushes investors toward riskier assets like stocks and real estate in search of better returns. The increased demand for these assets drives up their prices, creating what we call asset inflation. While this might not immediately show up in consumer price measurements like the Consumer Price Index, it still represents a form of inflation that affects the economy. Rising asset prices can create a wealth effect. When people see the value of their homes or investment portfolios increase, they often feel wealthier and spend more freely. This additional spending can then contribute to consumer price inflation. More critically, housing is a major component of most people's budgets. When low interest rates drive up home prices and rents, it directly impacts the cost of living for millions of people, even if they're not buying or selling homes themselves. One of the most challenging aspects of monetary policy is that there's often a significant time lag between interest rate changes and their effects on inflation. It typically takes 12 to 18 months for the full impact of interest rate changes to work through the economy. This means that by the time inflation becomes apparent, it may already be a serious problem. Central banks can find themselves in a difficult position. If they wait until inflation is clearly visible before raising rates again, they may be too late. But if they raise rates too soon, they risk stifling economic growth. This time, lag creates a trap where central banks might keep rates too low for too long, allowing inflationary pressures to build up significantly before they're recognized and addressed. So there you have it, the paradox of plenty. While cutting interest rates can indeed stimulate economic growth in the short term, it often plants the seeds of inflation that can harm the economy in the longer term. Understanding this paradox is crucial for anyone trying to make sense of economic policy and protect their financial future. When you hear about interest rate cuts, remember, what seems like economic medicine today could become the source of economic pain tomorrow. The next time you see a headline about the Federal Reserve cutting rates, you'll know there's more to the story than just good news for borrowers. You'll understand the potential inflationary consequences that might be lurking just around the corner. If you found this explanation helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more straightforward breakdowns of complex economic concepts. And let me know in the comments, what economic topic would you like me to tackle next? Thanks for watching The Paradox of Plenty.